So, Brother David, it was wonderful to hear your testimony. Let's talk a little bit about what God is doing right now in Israel. You're part of a congregation and you're helping lead in the land. Where, that's in Haifa or in Carmel?
Yeah, currently we attend Kehilata Carmel or Carmel Assembly. It's a congregation that really came out of Times Square Church in New York, and it actually began as a drug rehab. And the pastor who founded, Pastor David Davis, he was really a disciple of David Wilkinson.
Oh,
so they sent him out to Israel with his Jewish wife, and they began a drug work in downtown Haifa called Beit Nitzachon, or House of Victory.
Wow.
And it's probably the most successful rehab center in the country because, of course, the Bible's in it and God's in it. And what they did is they began to get these drug addicts, Arabs, Jews, Russians, and they started part of their program was a Wednesday night Bible study. And they started doing that. And other believers who were going to other congregations started to hear about this Bible study. They started going to the Bible study. And of course, it outgrew the little facility. So they moved up into this Arab village called Isafia, up on top of Mount Carmel. And we began in a little chapel there on top of an Anglican church, like a conference center. And so we were up there in the chapel, and then we outgrew the chapel, and we had to meet down in the dining room area, which was much bigger. We outgrew that. And then the church, the Anglican ministry, gave us a part of the property up the back area, and we actually, the congregation built their own facility there.
Oh, praise God.
It's well known around the world. David Davis' wife, Karen Davis, is a well-known worship leader. She's got 3 or 4 CDs out. And we have a lot of visitors come by. Not as many as we'd like, but we have a whole third of our sanctuary roped off for visitors on Shabbat, and they do come. Wonderful. And up until about 7 or 8 years ago, most of the visitors were Europeans, Canadians, Americans, a few from maybe down under. But over the last few years, God's been doing something amazing. And now I would say 80% of our visitors are now Asians.
Wow.
And so, they come, and one of our ministry focuses actually is to try to ensure that visiting groups connect not just with our congregation, but just connect with a congregation and meet the believers.
It's so wonderful.
It's imperative that the visiting pilgrims meet with the local believers, and it's really true. I mean, because the tourist industry, the general secular tourist industry, resists that.
Right.
But what I tell people, because they've got their own program, right? And it's true. I believe it's true that time spent together worshiping with the saints in Israel, it'll be the highlight.
You know what? Every time for me, Brother David, I felt the presence of the Lord so strong as I met with the Messianic believers or even Arab believers together. Yeah. So wonderful. Yeah. Now, tell me a little bit, because, things started small with the, Jews coming to Christ.
Sure.
Maybe what I could first ask is, some people might not understand the term Messianic. Mm-hmm. Could you define Messianic?
Messianic comes from the word Messiah, and that comes from the Hebrew word Mashiach, and that comes from the word limshach, to anoint. So really, Jesus Christ is not his name. His name is Yeshua, which means salvation. And if you wanted to say his name properly, you would say Jesus the Christ, or Jesus what you're really saying is Yeshua, or Jesus the anointed one, or HaMashiach.
Wonderful.
In Hebrew. So really, what I'm saying in that is actually the word Christian and the word Messiah, it's exactly the same word, but in a different language. So Christian comes from Christos.
Right.
Which kind of means, it doesn't exactly mean anointed one, but it's as close as you can get in the Greek language. So basically, I am a Christian because I believe in the Messiah or the Christ, but I prefer to call myself, and most of us prefer to call ourselves Messianic Jews, or Hebrew. Some people say Hebrew Christians, but Messianic Jews or Messianic believers, because sadly, and I know it's part of ICEJ teaching, is that the history of the church in their behavior towards the Jewish people
stained with blood.
Our hands are stained with blood. Yeah, there's a book written about that, and the sad indictment is that Jewish people have been safer in non-Christian countries than in Christian countries down through the ages.
Through the history,
there was never a Holocaust in a non-Christian country, and Germany was supposedly a Christian country. So the term Messianic simply means someone who follows the Messiah, which the English version of that is Christ. So it's just semantics, but it's more comfortable. And of course, when we introduce ourselves, particularly to other Jewish people,
Israelis,
when we're sharing, it's easy to say I'm a Messianic Jew.
Ani Meshichi.
Meshichi, and they know what that means. And even to say, when you say Jesus, immediately they think of the Crusaders.
Right.
But when you say Yeshua to a Jewish person, it means salvation. They immediately know you're talking about salvation.
Wow. Well, wonderful. So it was originally a small movement, but I've heard the numbers have grown over the years.
I wanted to mention that in this segment. It's amazing. 1967, let me take you to 1967. And 67 is a major point on God's program. 1948 was the one before. Of course, that was the restoration of Israel, which was a miracle. But in 1967, we had that miracle Six-Day War. Yeah, I mean, Israel was attacked by three large armies, and at the same time. And we cleaned the first army up on the second day. We cleaned up the second army on the fourth day.
Wow.
And by the sixth day, it was all over. So two things that happened, at least two things happened as a result of that war and the outcome. Number one, we got Jerusalem back as our divided capital city, which is really a necessity for the coming of the kingdom.
Absolutely.
But the other thing that happened is, I believe that a spirit was released from heaven. And up until that point of time, the number of Messianic Jews around the world was just an absolute remnant. And if you read testimonies of people that were believers before that time, most of them say the same thing. They say, I thought I was the only Messianic Jew in the world.
The only one?
Because they were so few and far apart, they never met another one. Now that was 52 years ago.
Right.
Today in Israel, there are close to 300 Messianic congregations. Congregations, yeah. There's at least 650 to 700 around the world.
Yes.
And encyclopedias are quoting anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million Jews who know they're Jews, who are believers in Yeshua today.
Wow.
And I believe that, one of my messages is the times of the signs. And I believe we're living in a time when we can see clear signs that we are living in the end times. And I believe those statistics, the fact that Israel exists, the fact that 8 million Jewish people are back in the land, coming home at 1,000 a week and increasing, the number of congregations and the number of believers, and even the fact that some of us are coming back out to the nations now with the word of the Lord.
Right.
I believe they are very, very clear, biblical, prophesied signs that we truly are living in the end times.
It truly is, Brother David. Now, how do the general Israeli public, how are Messianics received? You mentioned a little bit, using the term Messianic instead of Christian and so forth. But for example, there's many Messianics that have to come from other nations, and we may not have time in this segment to do that. But what's the general consensus now amongst the Israeli public? Okay,
in Israel, 20% of the public say they believe in God, and you've got liberals, conservatives, ultra-Orthodox. 80% don't. Now, I would say, generally speaking, most religious Jews don't like us. And the extreme is the ultra-Orthodox say we're worse than the Nazis.
Yeah.
Because they think we're trying, the Nazis killed the Jewish people physically, but they say when we try to bring a Jew to Yeshua, to the Messiah, we're killing their soul, which is totally not true.
Right.
But so that leaves the other 80% who are secular, and really they don't have a problem with us, and they actually like the Messianic Jews more than they like the Orthodox Jews.
Wow. Yeah.
And I mean, we have a testimony, and it's improving. Yeah. We serve in the army, we pay our taxes, and generally when Messianic Jews meet non-religious Jewish people in Israel, that we get on fine. They like us, and actually we do provoke them to jealousy.
Wow. Well, praise God. God is doing a work, Brother David. It's such a joy to hear that. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to continue our conversation.
Please share this video, and on YouTube, click the button below to become a subscriber.